Waterfall, the CCW podcast.
Hello and welcome to Waterfall. It's the water saving podcast brought to you by CCW. We are all about saving water, saving money, protecting the environment and combating climate change. As ever, I am here with the wonderful Karen. Hi, Karen.
Hello, Mike.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
That's not what you were saying earlier. You were feeling a bit under the weather.
Oh, well, I've got the old seasonal cold syndrome at the moment.
Well, you've done a good job in coming in for this, Waterfall takes precedent. That's great. And Tom, producer Tom, lurking as always. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Mike. Glad to be here. Season 2 is going so swimmingly. Let's continue.
You're wearing a special Season 2 shirt. That is something special.
I am. It's full of spitfires, Mike, and I'm ready to hear our guest spit some fire as well.
Well, we do have a brilliant guest coming up in just a few minutes. But what's the topic of today, Karen?
Well, it's really interesting, Mike, because, we've often, and I think you mention it most times when you introduce the podcast, that what we like to talk about is the fact that water saving has an energy saving dimension. It also has a climate change combating dimension. And the episode today is going to be talking about how important reducing carbon emissions is in not only the way water is produced, but the way we use it at home.
Yeah, and I think every time we introduce the show and we talk about combating climate change, I think intuitively we tend to think of water resources and that kind of thing, or extreme weather, too much water, too little water. But actually that whole climate change dimension is really important because there are emissions associated with water. And that's what we're going to find out from Howard when he comes in just a few minutes. One thing on terminology, because, we do love a bit of terminology. I'm sure we'll get some listeners saying, is it carbon or is it greenhouse gas emissions? Is it carbon dioxide? Just for the sake of, being really clear, when we talk about carbon, that's a shorthand for all the greenhouse gas emissions that cause climate change. So we'll stick to carbon just so we're all in the same place. But before we get to that, there's two things, Karen. I think you can already guess what one of the things are we need to cover.
I think so.
Oh, go on then. What's the email address?
I knew it.
This is your job, Karen. You've basically just got one job of Waterfall. It's just saying the email address over and over again.
Oh gosh, it's podcast@ccwater.org.uk.
Very good. And even though you're under the weather, you did that one take, Karen. That's what we call you now. It's fantastic. Thank you, Karen. We do love to hear from listeners. Please do get in touch if you got any feedback, ideas for new shows. We would and ideas for tats. We now want, marketing gimmicks. We want more suggestions along the lines of a waterfall spatula. Now, before we get stuck in, there was an article I saw in the newspaper recently, and Tom, I instantly thought of you on this because this is all about a ford in Nottinghamshire. Called Rufford Ford, an ancient ford, even appeared in the Doomsday Book, right? And this Ford, so it's been around for hundreds of years, and some fella has decided to film cars going through this Ford, and he's been sticking them on TikTok, and this has become a sensation. People have loved watching the cars going through this Ford, to the extent that people are now coming along specifically just to drive through this Ford so they'll get featured on TikTok. Now, what's happened is that people are now underestimating the strength of the river, and this river is quite peaky, so it can go from being very, very narrow to being like 3 foot deep. So people are rocking up and driving through under 4x4 and getting stuck. Now, of course, this is great for TikTok. This is perfect TikTok fodder. But of course, now the police are getting involved. They've shut this Ford, all because all these tourists are turning up. Anyway, I was thinking of you, Tom, because you've been on and on and on about walking with water. And I was thinking, well, this is a new take on that. It's driving with water. What do you think of it?
No, I'm very in favour of it, actually. I think it's very ironic seeing a Ford being swallowed by a Ford.
But you've been working on new material.
No, it just comes naturally. But yeah, it's the age-old battle with nature, isn't it? I think it's wonderful, Mike. And all I'll say is R.I.P. to all those gearboxes. I think there's been quite a disaster over there.
Oh, there has been, yeah.
It's
carnage when the weather's bad. Yeah. We should get in the CCW car. which doesn't exist, by the way. Yeah.
Is that what?
And go on a trip to this fort and see if we can get ourselves.
I would
featured.
love to do that. I would love to.
Feel like another day trip coming up. Excellent. Very good. Karen, is this the sort of thing you do in your spare time?
No, I can't say it is. I mean, as you know, Mike, they don't let me out very often, so I don't get to go on these day trips.
We've got another day trip that you're not going to coming up, but more on that in future episodes.
This podcast is brought to you by CCW, the voice for water consumers.
Enough of this. I think it is time to bring on the guest, and it is my great pleasure to welcome Howard Perry, who's Severn Trent's Energy Manager, to Waterfall. Hello, Howard.
Hello, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Well, you are very welcome, and you're very polite. So Severn Trent is one of the massive water companies, isn't it?
Yeah, so we cover the Midlands, Birmingham, obviously, second city, second biggest of the water companies, right across into Wales and right up to the north of the region, but mainly the Midlands. And Severn Trent Group as well also has HD, Hafren Dyfrdwy, which is one of the small Welsh companies providing water to people there in Wrexham as well.
Well, let's all. I think we should all have a little shot. Hafren Dyfrdwy.
Hafren Dyfrdwy. I believe, although I'm sure your listeners will send in to correct my pronunciation.
What's quite interesting is that Karen and Tom both have that look of, oh no, we're next. So, Karen, you're not getting away without having a shot. Go on.
Oh, come on, I'm not feeling at my best today, so you shouldn't really put me on the spot.
Tom?
Hafren Dwan and Dwee, is that sort of? No, I mean,
it's always better to make the attempt than to not try at all.
Tom's not following this.
These horrific brommy tones butchering that word. I apologise to our Welsh listeners.
So a big old company we've established. Now we do know it takes a lot of carbon to get clean water to people's houses. Just tell us a bit about that. Like, intuitively, we know water's heavy and moving around and all that stuff, but just tell us a bit more. How is all that carbon used?
Yeah, certainly. And it's interesting, isn't it? 10 years ago, I think if you'd have been talking about carbon, people might not have known what you were talking about, but there's a lot of understanding out there, I think, now about what climate change is and what drives it. And in a nutshell, climate change is driven by man-made emissions of greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide is the biggest one, so we call that carbon. There are others as well, some of which come from the water industry, which we'll talk about, but mainly carbon. So a lot of that comes from use of energy. And when we pump water out of the environment, treat it, provide it to people's houses, it takes a huge amount of energy. And that makes sense, really, doesn't it? Because if you think about water, it's quite heavy. Think about lifting a litre of water, the 90-odd metres that we pump some water on average to get to people's houses. It's quite heavy.
Is that right? 90
takes
metres?
a lot of energy. Yeah, that's our average. So our average from our treatment works to your customer tap is about 90 metres. That's the head.
You're lifting water at 90 metres high, right?
On average, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll use gravity where we can, but there's a lot of pumping required, a lot of movement of that water, which is quite heavy. So that takes a lot of energy. And as we know in society, lots of energy, lots of electricity is generated by burning fossil fuels. And that's where a big chunk of those emissions come from. So when we're providing water to your door, we're using a lot of energy and that results in emissions. So that's a big cause of emissions. And one of our contributions to climate change we need to think carefully about.
Very good. That makes sense. And in terms of like the energy taken to move it around compared to the energy taken to clean it up, how's that split roughly?
Yeah, that's
just a rule of thumb.
Yeah, a great question. So the energy we use is split about 50-50 between the wastewater operation and the clean water operation. So on the clean water side, most of that is pumping water. The electrically driven centrifugal pump that we operate in the water industry.
Oh, I tell you what, I wish I had my jargon buzzer because it'd be going crazy now.
Yeah, people will love that, I'm sure. So the pumps we operate are really, really efficient, but take a lot of electricity. So that's mainly where the energy goes on the clean water side to get it to the tap. But then, of course, we take it away, we pump it through the sewers, and we treat it in order to return it to the river in a clean state. And there, most of the energy used is to do with the wastewater treatment process. We have to pump in a lot of air, and we also have to move that sewage and that sludge as well, which takes some pumping. So that's where the energy goes.
And I think that side of it, the waste side and the energy on that side of the water company business, would probably go largely unnoticed because people don't really talk about the energy involved in treating sewage.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's a bit of an unseen service that's provided to get that water back to the river, but does take a lot of energy. And other things as well, which is where we've got other emissions impacts. So chemicals is a big one. We need chemicals on both the clean water side to make sure water's fit to drink, potable and wholesome. And we need it on the wastewater side to make sure it's as good a quality as it can be before we return it to the river. And those chemicals themselves have emissions impacts when they're manufactured and delivered to us. So lots of different ways in which emissions emerge.
Wow, so it's kind of more complicated than maybe it first seems. It's not just about moving water around, is it?
Yeah.
So carbon equals money because there's lots of carbon associated with energy. And energy prices are like absolutely crazy at the minute. So given that there's so much energy associated with money, surely there's just a real incentive there to use less.
Yes, that's definitely true. And interestingly, if you look at the history of the water sector over the past 10, 20 years, energy's always been important. So prices are very high at the moment, early 2023 and through 2022, as you say, for energy. So that adds more incentive to do something about it. But energy's always been a big cost to the water industry. So the industry's actually done a lot to manage the cost of energy, and that's a core part of my job. That's why I exist in Severn Trent. So if you look over the 10, 20 years, what many of the companies have done is generated renewable energy for themselves, which we generate from sewage sludge. You get a gas from that poo and a methane that can use to generate
a lot of gas in my poo, not necessarily at your works.
I knew you'd enjoy that bit, yeah. So lots of good renewable gas we can use to generate energy, and we've also worked really hard to try and make our systems and processes as efficient as we possibly can to both manage that cost and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And that's where the success has been in the industry over the past 20 years, I would say. Emissions have dropped by quite a substantial amount since about 2011. But what we're into now is the more tricky emissions to manage. So energy is really important, remains really important with cost. We've done quite a lot about it. There's more to do, but there are other sources of emissions as well that we need to think about.
So that's really interesting, Howard, because you've said that I brought up about the here and now. Surely now it's going to be focused because of the energy cost, but you've said actually it's been a big cost for many, many years anyway, right? In fact, I was reading somewhere the other day, 2% of England's energy is used by the water sector. Was that correct?
Yep, 3% I've got in my notes, but
3%.
close.
No, I read that. I read 2% yesterday. I think it came from Water UK. Water UK, I don't know if you listen, but, get your facts right, please.
But yeah.
But still, that's whether it's 2, whether it's 3, that's like a decent chunk.
Yes.
Just to be used by one sector. But you say actually you've been focusing on this for ages and you've been successful. So just give us an idea when you say successful, what do you mean? Like how much have you, I'm guessing you've been success in this case is reducing emissions, right? So just how much has the sector reduced its emissions over the years?
Yes, certainly. So, and if we talk about energy, so you're right, 3% of the energy in the UK.
2, I'd say.
Between 2 and 3, it's probably a rounding thing, isn't it? Is used in the water sector. So it's a huge amount. But what the industry's managed to do is increase the generation of renewable energy. So it's at the point where it's generating about 25% of the energy that it uses by itself.
Oh, so that's offsetting.
That's been
carbon.
a huge growth. And what that does, because it's renewable, is it offsets the amount of emissions that would otherwise result from getting that energy from the grid, from coal or from gas, which is where we get actually a lot of our electricity in the UK. But yeah, the UK industry emissions are down to about 3 million tonnes per annum.
And what did it used to be?
And that's dropped by about 40%, something like that, over the previous 10 years.
40.
And a big chunk of that has been more renewable energy in the sector, but also more renewable energy in the UK as a whole. So that's been one of the contributions.
Oh, so that's like our power mix overall is becoming
Yeah.
less carbon intensive.
Precisely. Yeah.
Okay, but that is a good news story because I think a lot of people, the kind of whole drive to reduce carbon is something that's just been going on the last few years. But this isn't, the sector's been on it.
Yeah.
No, that is good.
But going back to your previous question, I would say the areas where we've been focused is where those cost incentives have been aligned, and energy is definitely one of those, and it's even more important than it has been in previous years.
I'm really baffled by how quiet Karen is so far in this episode. It's like she's taken up Tom's role as the lurker. Karen, I don't believe for a second you're this disinterested in carbon. I mean, usually I can't shut you up.
I've been fascinated by the conversation, so I was just letting it flow, so to speak. But I mean, I think that the interesting thing for me is we've obviously got a challenge to try to achieve net zero by 2050. It sounds as though the industry is already doing a huge amount to try to find where those savings can be found. I mean, how confident are you that we can achieve that goal?
Yeah, great question. And net zero is one of those really tricky, slippery terms, isn't it? That's very difficult to understand. And if you're really into the niche detail, as I am, of the International GHG Protocol and DEFRA's greenhouse gas guidance and all of that sort
I'll
of stuff.
tell you what, Aaron, seriously, the jargon buzzer. It's like, you bust it.
If you're into that, you can spend the rest of your life trying to figure out what it means. But broadly, to a layman, the net zero goal is we get all of our greenhouse gas emissions across society to zero. Now, responsibility for that is obviously split up between householders and government and industries like ourselves, but that's ultimately what we're all aiming to achieve. And I do think that is possible across society in the UK. We've got enough technology, we've got enough innovation, we've got enough smart people to figure out ways of doing that without, seriously impacting people's living standards. So I think that's possible in society. It gets very tricky working out which bits of society do that first and which companies go first. We ourselves, so Severn Trent and the industry, have set a goal for net zero by 2030.
Wow, so that's way ahead of the UK's target.
Which is ahead of the UK's target, yeah, absolutely right. And by that we mean all of our emissions will be reduced or offset by renewable generation, things like that. And then ultimately we'll get those source emissions down to zero as well. So that's what we mean by our 2030 goal. And the aim there is to be ambitious and lead as far as we can.
Well, that is taking the leadership position. How confident are you you'll hit that 2030 one then? Gail, give us a confidence grade.
Oh, great. Confidence grade. That's a good
I know.
That's one for the jargon buzzer, definitely. Yeah. So I am confident. I'm confident Severn Trent can do that, which is where I work. I think there are ways of the industry getting there, but there's not a lot of time left. But it's
2023, so
we're 2023, so 7 or 8 years. So we do need innovation, lots of which we're doing. We do need to try different things. We do need the rest of the UK moving along with us as well. So we need, more rollout of low carbon vehicles. We need more renewables on the grid. We need government to be on board. We need regulators supportive, all that stuff. But I think it's possible. Yeah, I do.
And so in achieving that net zero by 2030, where do you see the biggest kind of challenges within that? I mean, you're saying you need innovation and stuff, but is there one thing that's really bothering you? There's a certain process or something that is like...
Yes. Yeah, I think, so we've probably got three really big challenges that I would talk about. So the first one is we do have in our wastewater treatment processes, which I've talked about before, and which I'm sure you've covered in other podcasts. We have greenhouse gases that come from that. So nitrous oxide is one, methane's another one. They're quite potent greenhouse gases and they're quite
nitrous
tricky.
Oxide, no laughing matter.
Yeah, no, yeah, laughing gas, exactly. Yeah, I should have referred to it as that. Yeah, so it's not one of those NOxes that will hurt human health, but it is a greenhouse gas. And we have that naturally emerge from the sewage treatment processes that we operate. So we need to find ways to reduce that. And it's quite difficult because if you, many of you on the listening won't have been to a sewage treatment works, but it's a big open area. There's waste across that site and the emissions can emerge at any point. So we need to find ways to capture that, change the chemistry to get that down. So that's a big challenge, requires a lot of thinking and innovation, much of which is going on in the industry, which is quite exciting work. The second area I think is supply chains. So I think on your next podcast, you're going to see a reservoir being built, which will be very interesting, I'm sure. But what you'll see there, I suspect, is lots of building materials, concrete, diggers, diesel, lots of that going on there, which results in emissions. So building projects, our supply chain, the way they operate, lots of emissions there that are tricky to tackle and require others to be doing stuff.
I think, I just wanted to chip in there because I think that is something that is... it's one of these areas that people just don't naturally think about, that building stuff takes a lot of carbon. But I mean, it's obvious though, but it's not thought about.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, it's energy again a lot of the time. Big movements, diggers, that sort of stuff it's often diesel, that's a fossil fuel. And concrete, cement, making those sort of materials results in emissions.
I'm guessing steel as well.
Moving steel,
quite energy intensive.
Yeah, very energy intensive to make steel. You need a lot of heat for that sort of stuff. So all of that is quite energy intensive. But it needs to be done. It needs to be done to make sure people have got water and the environment's protected. So that's a big area of challenge. And then a third area, which is the theme of your podcast, I think a really good thing to be getting home to people is about demand for water. So the more water people use, the more of that infrastructure we have to build, the more energy we have to use, the more chemicals we have to use. And what we've seen, certainly at Severn Trent, but I think the other companies as well, is demand's actually rising year on year. We've seen more use of water in people's homes. and also new requirements for sewage treatment as we get tighter and tighter standards, which is a good thing, but requires activity that results in emissions. So working out ways to do both is the big challenge for us, I think. So they're my three big challenges.
You say that, that it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think there are lots of people that are going to be listening that haven't really thought about how the services that we've come to rely on are actually delivered to our homes. And this has been a really good insight into some of those processes and things that, are kind of, they're not front of mind when we're turning the tap on or flushing the toilet, And one of the things that we have tried to do in other episodes is help people make the connection between once the water has got to their home and how they're using it, does have that link with energy as well, because a big proportion of the water that we use at home is being heated. And so you're using electricity, which is also, contributing to those emissions. So it's really interesting, and I think hopefully helpful to people listening to be able to see that bigger picture.
So my last question on carbon really was actually about the topic Karen just brought up, which was about the energy associated with with water once it gets to the home. So you've kind of explained that there's possibly 2 or 3% of UK's energy used to get water to your home. But then how does that compare with the energy and the carbon that is associated with the things we do with water once it's there? So not the water company's bit.
Yes.
Do you know that?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. That's really important, and it's actually 10 times as much.
10 times
as the emissions we result in from delivering it to your tap. 10 times as much is resulting from the use of it in everybody's homes and businesses. So that's from, obviously you use water in your heating system actually, but leave that aside for radiators and so on.
That's a
showers,
closed system,
yeah,
right?
It's a closed system.
Oh,
so
buzzer's going again.
It's a bit of our water, but we'll leave that bit aside. But yeah, heating, kettles, showers, baths, these things, they require a huge amount of energy in your home, which will probably be gas if you've got a boiler like most people, like myself.
Yep.
A huge amount of emissions to heat that water up, and that's 10 times as much as us delivering it to your door.
Wow. So that really drowns the carbon emitted water pun there, Howard. Come on. You've got to appreciate this.
Very good.
A lot of effort goes into this. But that really does, it pales into comparison, doesn't it? The carbon in getting water to your home compared to the carbon associated with what we do once it gets to our home. So that makes our messages, Karen, all the stuff you've been banging on about, the whole of Series 1, even more important. I didn't know that, by the way, that 10 times. I knew it was, if I'd had a guess, I'd have said it's a little bit more, not 10 times.
Yeah.
Are you sure? So this isn't one of these Water UK facts.
I think Energy Savings Trust that was from. So I think we've talked about tons, haven't we? But not really bringing it to life for people. So a car results in about 4 tons of carbon dioxide a year. Average car, average mileage, driving it around. So that you've got a family car, you've got about 4 tons from that. Then from the heating water in your home, it's about 2 to 3 tons, depending what you do. So it's similar magnitude to the car that you drive. That's the emissions impact you're having from that use of water.
Again, I don't think people necessarily make that link that your car and your showering is roughly the same.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really interesting stuff there. Right, before we move off of carbon, Karen, you got any other questions for Howard? See that look of slight horror there on Karen's face. Oh, he's asking me stuff again.
Well, I guess the key question that we ask all our guests is around the particular tips that they would share with people for reducing either their water use or carbon.
Yeah, I think before we get to that, let's ask Howard what his personal water use is. Do you think he knows it? Are you all right, Karen? I think you need a glass of water. Yeah, go get yourself a glass of water. It's okay. We definitely want you on future editions. So yeah,
we got the question though.
I know that was a nice little safety moment.
Yeah, very good, very good.
So Howard, what is your personal water use? Do you know it?
Yeah, good Great question. It's good you asked why you guessed this. So I had to work it out for this podcast. It's a
Oh,
good
did you?
question to ask.
That's been a recurring theme. We ask people that,
Yeah.
and it's not top of mind. And this is for people who actually tend to have an interest in water.
Yeah. But that said, I am very careful with my water use. I was hoping the calculator would tell me it's quite low. And actually, I think it's all right. So I came out with 92 litres per person per head in our household. Which I think is okay.
Good.
It's below the average.
That's decent. That is decent. I think that's top of the season 2 leaderboard, mainly on the basis that I've forgotten to ask the other guests. So, well done. You top and bottom.
Winner by default. But yeah, in terms of what we do, it's nothing special really. So I think you've had guests in the past, Steve, who are down at 70 odd, so you must be doing something very special. But, we have a normal number of showers. We wash the clothes, the dishwasher. I've got 2 kids, but we only bath them once every 2 nights. So that
and do they have a bath together?
They do have a bath together. Yeah. They're only little. They're not 18 yet. So.
Yeah, that would just be weird.
So I'm probably lucky there. But yeah, don't have a pool. Don't use a hose pipe. Let the grass go brown. It'll be fine. As it is proved this summer, actually, it went brown and then it's been fine. So all that stuff, I think that keeps your water use reasonable. It's the big uses of water, pools, that sort of thing, that can often make it go high.
Oh, don't get me started on hot tubs.
Hot tubs, yeah.
We've not really mentioned hot tubs enough on Waterfall, actually. So very good. That's good. 92, very impressive.
Be sure to head back through the archives and check out all the past episodes of Waterfall.
Look, one of the themes, before we go, just to reflect on what you said, I think one of the things that really jumped out to me was the sources of carbon that are kind of hidden. They're not top of mind. So stuff like building things, and water sector does need to build a lot of stuff. And in the wastewater side of the business, so treating water and returning it safely to the environment, I don't think that's top of people's mind.
Yeah.
Is that something that you find when you talk to people?
Yeah, certainly. And those things are essential. So water's a right and a privilege for people. So people absolutely should get clean water. So it's right that we do those things, but it's also right that we try and reduce the emissions from them. And they can go under the radar. And some of those little changes, like on water efficiency, they can make a really big difference.
No, absolutely. Right, Karen, any final words from you if you feel you can actually get words out?
I can. I think you were saying, on the wastewater side, these sort of issues are particularly important. I guess what I'm very conscious of as well is increasingly the industry is looking for what's described as nature-based solutions to some of the water quality issues and things like that.
I'm laughing in the jargon of nature-based solutions. The buzzer again is going haywire.
So this is using the landscape and natural processes rather than building stuff, in effect, isn't it? And that does seem to be something that the industry is beginning to embrace.
Certainly, and it's a great idea, isn't it? Nature should be protected and improved. We need more biodiversity, not less. We probably need less building, actually. So we can do stuff without building. That reduces emissions, full stop. We do have to think quite cautiously about that, because if protecting the environment is really important. If a nature-based solution, which might be reed beds, is the one that's often used, doesn't treat wastewater to a good enough standard, and that's not going to protect the surrounding environment, it won't work. And in many of those cases, we find you need those tried and tested, mechanical, chemical processes to make sure it gets to that standard. So it doesn't work everywhere, but use of nature and enhancement of nature is really, really important and generally important for combating climate change and adapting to climate change as well. It's very likely lots of those nature-based things will help us cope with a warming world that we're likely going to see. So we tend to think of nature as a good thing to do and something to be protected first and foremost. We as a water company have got big tracts of land, and we want to enhance that biodiversity on the land. We've done lots of biodiversity schemes on sewage treatment works on bits of land. We've done tree planting as well with the Commonwealth Games. I know other companies have as well in the country. So big advocates of that. But we do have to be cautious and make sure it works and then provides all the quality needs for the local environment as well.
And I think when you look at using more innovative type solutions or unusual solutions, we've got to keep trying things, and we've got to keep trying experimenting to find new ways to reduce our emissions, because I think we need to have that laser-like focus on that, because if we don't, we're not going to hit that challenge, are we? We're getting to net zero by 2030.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to try new things and find new ways of doing things. I think one thing which is a personal view is people are unlikely to drastically change their wants and needs in terms of how much water they're going to want in their homes and how much they're going to want to travel. So it's up to industries like us to find alternative ways to meet those needs. Travel's a great example, which we haven't really talked about. It's unlikely people are going to stop driving. They want to move around and see friends and family and go on holiday. So we've got to find low carbon ways of doing that, and that's what we've got to do on treatment and on water and on transport.
Brilliant. Look, it's been fantastic having you on, Howard. Learning loads on this. Be great to have you back on. Maybe drill into some of these areas of jargon that we want to unpack.
I apologise to viewers if there was lots of jargon in there. I tried to keep it to a minimum.
But yeah, no, thank you so much. I think we've run out of time basically for this episode. So if you want to get in touch, you've got any questions for Howard, we can pass them on. We do have an email address,
which is podcast@ccwater.org.uk.
So don't forget to get in touch. We will be out and about exploring a reservoir in an episode soon. Howard's done a nice job at trailing that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
That was good. He's better at plugging the waterfall than we are. but that's all we've got time for. So it's goodbye from me, Mike.
And goodbye from me, Karen.
And goodbye from me, Tom.
You see, we did that again. We gave the Tom pause and he actually said goodbye this time. Fantastic. Right. Bye, everyone.